Welcome back to Spotlight. These fight nights have been all over the place since UFC 327 in Miami. From the Great White North to the home of the UFC in Vegas, this week takes us to the land down under, headlined by local boy Jack Della Maddalena and Carlos Prates. Fourth year in a row, UFC arriving in Western Australia to showcase elite MMA. Locals are going to like the primetime start instead of the Sunday morning session that they're used to. You're taking a look at the tail of the tape of this welterweight bout, and it looks like this. Odds makers have this basically as a coin flip fight, with the Brazilian ever so slightly the favorite. Hour number 2 of the show. I'm Tommy Tran, folks. We're getting you ready for UFC Perth with Brian Campbell and Chael Sonnen. Gentlemen, great to have you on. When we talk about what's at stake here, right? 1v5, it is a good matchup to have. Chael, I'm going to give you first word, though. In terms of the stakes, how much does the winner get closer to the champion Islam Makhachev, you think?
I don't know that this is a elimination fight. Jack just had the fight with Islam. It was painful to sit through that entire fight, in all fairness. Now, I think that Prates has a little bit of a rocket tied to him. I think they would like Prates to be a big star. But it's a really tough draw. Jack did not look great against Islam. Jack did not win a minute, let alone a round of that fight. But Jack beaten everybody else pretty handily. Like Jack has put a separation between himself and the field. So Prates is the first one to try to come in. Maybe Jack's morale is a little bit down. If Prates could get the jump on Jack, it will bring him closer. But in fairness, neither one of these guys is going to a title fight next.
That's true, but there's certainly an opportunity, as Chael mentioned, for both to potentially stamp a future opportunity. And for Jack Della Maddalena, as Chael mentioned, it is about redeeming himself. For as great as he looked in that 16-fight win streak that took him into winning the world title against Belal Muhammad, he really did not show himself well over 5 rounds in a painful loss on the ground to Islam Makhachev. This is about holding serve for Jack Della back in his home city of Perth to continue to show that he is of this true elite level and he belongs to stay in the title conversation. But on the flip side, this could be the fight that truly makes Carlos Prates. The exciting 32-year-old Brazilian is 6-1 in the UFC, all wins coming by stoppage, and the only thing he likes more than knocking people out is celebrating with a little bit of a cigarette at the end of the day. And when I mean a little bit, he says 10 to 15 per week when he's training. I know I can't get down like that. Maybe the bad guy could, but this is a fun fighter to watch in the cage, outside of it. This could be the fight that makes him, but boy, will he have a hungry customer across from him in the former champion.
It's interesting hearing both of you guys be really excited about the Brazilian. We're going to get to Prates more in just a bit, but Chael, you mentioned how Jack didn't look very good in that last fight at MSG last November. What did we learn about him in that fight against Islam in the cage then?
Well, there appeared to be a blueprint to beat him, which was to take him down and keep him in that position. And that's one of the reasons where the fight wasn't all that fun. Round 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all looked the same. But I don't know that this was Jack's fault. Like in other matches, Jack's had pretty good wrestling. In other matches, his takedown defense has been spot on. I think that maybe we just need to credit Islam before we get in the way and start to pull Jack down. Look, I will just tell you, Carlos Prates is somebody that the UFC thinks has a huge future. There is a rumor confirmed by Conor McGregor that Conor McGregor accepted a fight against Prates. And I only share that if they were looking to give Prates to McGregor, their biggest star, I think that tells you the potential that they see in this young man. UFC doesn't do you any favors. Getting through Jack's not going to be easy. But if there's a time to get through Jack, perhaps it's with the added pressure of him fighting at home and with the discouragement of losing his last 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Chael, on the idea that Jack Della Maddalena wasn't always known for having a hole in his ground game. Yes, he could be taken down, but in the past, he had a reputation of getting up right away and continuing to lean into his strengths, which is some of the best boxing that we see in the UFC. Was this just the worst possible time to have the worst possible performance against, oh, by the way, the greatest fighter in the sport, pound for pound, in Islam, and a fighter who's on his way to becoming one of the greatest of all time? It might be. The good news is he's not only back home here, he's against an opponent with a similar style. If you could take away anything good from Jack Della's loss to Makhachev in Madison Square Garden in November, he never stopped trying to win the fight. He never stopped trying to get up. The problem was He never could. He didn't have a plan B, C, or D on the ground. The only plan he had was looking up at the lights. He will not see that type of style or attack in this one. But yet what I still want to see is how much did that motivate Jack to go back into camp, put in the work, and maybe we'll see him surprise Prates with some takedowns and show him that he does have that in his game.
Hey, he might need that because Prates has been a big finisher as of late, rebounding from that last loss in April, a couple finishes against Neal and Edwards. BC, I'm going to give you first word, and Chael, I have you follow. How much can that sort of accelerate what you guys are talking about and sort of Prates here rising up the ranks?
I mean, he's got everything you would want. As Chael mentioned, if you're a UFC matchmaker, if you're looking to put the rocket strap on somebody, 32 years old, got a great look fighting out of Brazil with the tattoos, has an attitude to match that he just doesn't give a what. I mean, he walks around smoking cigarettes. He is who he is. He goes to the beat of his own drum. But when you can back that up with knocking out your opponents and doing so, by the way, in brutal fashion, and each time you step up the ladder, seemingly showing more confidence and more ability to find your opponent's chin, it puts some glow around you. This is a special fighter on the rise. His knockout last November of former champion Leon Edwards forced you to take him super serious. If his demolishing Jeff Neal in the fight before didn't do that. And the one thing I'll say about Prates' only UFC loss, yes, it was a 5-round defeat to Ian Machado Gary, who may be the next title challenger. But I think Uncle Chael can attest to this. You saw Prates rally back late in that fight and nearly score a stoppage. That gives you brownie points with the fans, with the matchmakers. That shows that you are game for as long as that fight's going to last.
Yeah, and Brian, can I just add this, by the way, because I know anytime there's a feature match like this, we, of course, talk about can the winner draw into a title fight? But right now, there is arguably another reward, and that reward, aside from a title fight, is who's going to be opposite Conor McGregor. If those rumors are true that Conor's coming back, if the rumors are true, and Conor says they are himself, that Prates is the guy being looked at, I do think that if Prates is to get a victory, to take that microphone and go right after McGregor, there is other opportunity aside from a title fight. I guess that's what I'm offering.
Okay, I like that line of thinking there from Chael. So it is prediction time. Chael, do you think it plays out that way with Prates, or do you favor JDM in this fight?
I got JDM, and I don't want it to be. I think better for business. I think better for the three of us is probably if Prates goes out, beats him, and lights up a cigarette and calls out McGregor. But JDM really is something special, and he stubbed his toe. We really saw how great Islam is. I'm just not convinced that JDM isn't the next best thing. I think JDM wins in a decision.
Ooh, on the flip side, you know what? I'm not only taking Prates here, I'm taking him by stoppage. And I know what you're saying. Well, we haven't seen JDM get lit up on the feet like this. No, we haven't. And yes, he'll be fighting in his backyard. But what is JDM going to be looking to do here? Put everything that happened to Makhachev behind him. Sometimes that can lead to over-aggression. Sometimes that can lead to taking chances. And when Prates brings in a 2-inch height advantage, but even more important, the 5-inch reach advantage, I didn't think he was going to KO Leon Edwards, right? I didn't think he was going to walk through the opponents he did. I like to ride momentum. I'm going to go Prates in this one. But boy, is this a well-matched main event that could go either way with so much at stake for both fighters.
Yeah, both guys have 6 fight night bonuses, tied for the third most among active welterweights in the UFC. Guys, great for a segment. Don't go anywhere. We're going to hit a break here on HQ Spotlight. When we come back, we'll tackle the rest of the card, including Beneil Dariush taking on a big Inquilian Salkilld in the co-main. Welcome back, folks. Let's take a look at the rest of the main card for UFC Perth this weekend in Australia. Now, at the time of this segment, still no official opponent for Marwan Rahiki after featherweight up-and-comer Jack Jenkins suffered an injury. Start time here in the States for this event, 7 a.m. Eastern, with the prelims at 4 on Paramount+. Wake up early and enjoy some fights. Back here with the fellas. So this is how the rest of the card's going to work out. BC is going to lay the land, set the table, and then Chael's going to give us the winner, how, and why. So let's start with the lightweights, Beneil Dariush and Inquilian Salkilld here. 10-year difference, BC. Bad form for one, good form for the other. What else are we looking out for here?
Look, you nailed it. It's a crossroads fight. Quillan Salkilld fighting out of Australia, 4-0 with the UFC, 3 by stoppage, and he has shown throughout his short career, losing his pro debut, then winning the next 11, that he can finish you on the feet, he can finish you on the ground as well. One of the more exciting prospects we've seen in a while in this lightweight division, and he's gotten a lot of attention, including that UFC 325 victory in Australia in January over Jamie Malarkey. This is, though, the biggest name he'll come across in his short run in the octagon, which began in February of last year. Beneil Dariush is 36 years old. He's battle-tested, but with 3 losses in his last 4 fights, all by knockout, there's some serious questions about his punch resistance, whether he can still go out there and do the type of things he used to do, which is be durable, be a big-time striker, and be able to control people on the ground. He lost in 16 seconds last November to Benoit Saint-Denis, and that was a real wake-up call to the idea that maybe the best days are behind him. If Salkilld finishes him here, whoa, boy, would that be a big statement, as this is the biggest name he's fought to date. We're going to have to see if Dariush can dig in, bite down, and show us the Benny of old.
And history says Salkilld would win. History says the younger guy with the momentum, the up-and-comer, is going to win. I'm going with Benny, and my analysis is very lazy, guys. You want to know what I did? I called Benny. I said, Benny, things haven't been going so well. I need to know straight up, are you going to win this fight? Can you beat this guy at this point in your career? I'm going on CBS, and I need the answer. He said, Chael, I can beat him. I said, what's going to be different? How are you going to beat him? And he said, one thing about this guy is he's got very powerful hands very early. I'm going to get my hands on him. I'm going to drag him into the 2nd and 3rd round. This was Benny's take, but I believe him. I'm going with Benny. I don't have a better analysis than that, but Benny is right that if he gets his hands on him and he does slow him down, that will up his chances of winning. I think at least to that part, Brian and I can agree.
All right, Chael thinks it's a live dog from the horse's mouth himself, Beneil Dariush. All right, let's go to flyweight, folks. Tim Elliott and Steve Erceg here. And BC, the Aussie returning to flyweight after bantamweight in his last bout.
Yeah, we're going to see right here if Steve Erceg, a former title challenger, in just his 4th UFC fight, can continue this comeback. And what I mean by that is he came that close to winning the flyweight championship against Alexandre Pantoja all the way back in May of 2024 at UFC 301. But back-to-back losses after that fight, that really put into question whether he was still of this ilk and still belonged at the top of this division. Look, he came onto the scene in the UFC kind of out of nowhere and was instantly a true contender. Those 3 losses brought into a lot of question, including his durability, but what he did in his last fight was go out there and remind us at age 30 with a clean, unanimous decision over Ode Osborne last August that he still got it. What makes this matchup so interesting is his opponent, the 39-year-old Tim Elliott. They can't retire him out of this division. He's won 4 of 5 since 2021. He's got that funky style. He loves to take chances to try to set up wild skirmishes on the ground. He's a jiu-jitsu expert. He's tough as nails. And for a guy that's won and lost big in his career, he's still moving. This may be narrative-wise about whether Steve Erceg still has it, but don't count out Tim Elliott if he can get another big victory here against a huge name.
I will see Brian's excitement, and I will raise him a fight of the night contender. This is the match. I mean, this is the people's main event. There's only a few times throughout the year when I will read a press release about a matchup, and then I'll actually text one of the matchmakers, Mick Maynard or Sean Shelby, and go, thank you. This is a great fight. But this is one of them. When I saw Elliot versus Oprah, I mean, this is the fight. I think Elliot's going to beat him. I think Elliot's going to beat him just because he appears to be like getting younger in his career. Elliot really never got old or saw back end of his career, as much as he had a few things where he made stupid mistakes or he made a mistake that where he beat himself. And just lately, I think that Elliot's fighting as good as he ever has. This is going to be an awesome fight. We're going to get a lot of minutes here, but ultimately, I believe Elliot gets the victory.
Gets the Chael stamp of approval as well. Let's hit to the big boys, fellas. Shamil Gaziev, Brando Pericic. Pericic fighting out of Course City Kickboxing. BC, what are the chances this goes the distance given the 2 guys that will be in the octagon soon?
Probably not likely. And oh, by the way, that's the way we love it at the heavyweight division. Sometimes it's super sloppy, but it's always fireworks. It's always fun. And when you're talking about city kickboxing and the reputation, it certainly straightens you up in your chair that you're seeing someone who can do some things. And Pericic's 31 years old, fighting out of Australia, 2-0 in the UFC, and both have been first-round stoppages since making his debut a year ago. He's got just one loss in his career, 6-1 overall. And at 6'5", the Balkan Bear is certainly a nice addition to the division when we consider that heavyweight pretty much historically is always in need of depth. Right now, we certainly have big faces and big names at the top, but we got to fill out that top 10 with worthy contenders. Can he be that? Well, he's going to have to go in against a very experienced opponent in Shamil, who's 3-2 in the UFC since his debut in 2023. Yes, he got stopped in one round last time out against a streaking Waldo Cortez Acosta, but you got to believe he's coming back to gain revenge. Take the under, as the bettors like to say in this one. I don't know how long it lasts, but if the judges are involved, that'll be a shocker.
Yeah, I also think that this is going to be less than the 15-minute agreed-upon limit. But I like Brando in this, and I like Brando. Look, he's a training partner of Carlos Ulberg, who just captured the World Championship. I talked to those guys and just, how does he do? Does he spar with these guys in the gym? Israel Adesanya was my source, and Izzy said, yeah, he's actually one of the hardest workers. And I said, you mean one of the hardest working heavyweights? And Izzy goes, no. He's one of the hardest workers in the room, which very seldomly goes to the heavyweight. That's a compliment that Daniel Cormier used to get, or even Cain Velasquez used to get. If you can have a heavyweight that trains like the middleweights, you have something special, and that's what I'm told is unique about Brando.
And we're going to end with Tai Tuivasa, who's a favorite despite being on a 6-fight losing streak, BC. What do we expect against Louis Sutherland?
Well, we expect Tai Tuivasa to probably drink out of a shoe, win or lose, but in all seriousness, he's got to be fighting for his job. One of the most fan-favorite fun heavyweights we've seen in recent years, 33 years old, back in his home country of Australia. But that's also where we just saw Tai Tuivasa in January at UFC 325, where he came back from an 18-month layoff looking to shed a 5-fight losing skid. And what happened? A sloppy, exhaustive loss to Taliesin Teixeira over 3 rounds, in which there were many openings for Tuivasa to get the win. Very few fighters in history have survived what would be a 7-fight losing skid if Tuivasa loses here. I can think of, BJ Penn, Tony Ferguson, legends. Tai Tuivasa is going to have to come out swinging as he always does. I don't know if it's lucky for him, but he originally was going to fight Sean Sharaf, who broke his nose in training camp. Late replacement is Louis Sutherland out of the UK. 0-2 so far in the UFC, but he does bring it. But Chael knows you can only be employed for so long before you get that W, because at the end of the day, you are what your record says you are.
Yeah, Tuivasa really has got to get this win. And does that added pressure help him or hurt him? Look, this is a modern-day Tank Abbott, and I mean this as a compliment. Like, Tuivasa does not have a black belt in any martial art form, but he's won a lot of fights, and he's beaten guys that have black belts, and he's beaten guys that are more polished. I think Tuivasa is dog tough, but he's got to do it with his hands. He's got to do it standing up. He's going to be given an opportunity early. His opponent is going to stand and feel things out with him. Tuivasa needs to catch him then. Get him out of here in the first round, and I predict he's going to do just that.
Chael, Brian, that was a fun chat. Guys, thanks for hopping on the show to get us ready for Fight Night. A reminder, all Fight Nights and numbered cards exclusively on Paramount+. Up next, UFC 328 from Newark, New Jersey, headlined by 2 title fights, Chimaev Strickland and Van Tyra, May 9th, and both BC and Chael will be on hand to see it in person.